Oh, well, I don't like to brag. There's a Dalek here. My God.
And Starfleet has decided to send a representative.
Exterminate.
That's awesome.
That is very cool.
Are you telling me when your guys are ready? You may as well. My guys can start rolling.
John, you can give me the high sign when you guys are ready, okay?
But take your time.
He said, no, not you.
See? John and I were having a full conversation. And Janie. No problem. Full house, man.
That's not good. Yeah, who was that, Bob Saget? Full house.
Yeah, John Stamos, of course, the Olsen twins.
What was the other, what's the new one? Fuller House?
Fuller
Fuller
House.
House.
Yeah.
Amen.
Fuller House.
They loved it. The kids love it. God bless them.
They get Fuller Brush there. You remember that? Fuller Brush man used to come to your house.
Red Skeleton movie.
That's right. The Fuller Brush
Come on,
man.
man.
Very good.
Come on. We
In case you can't tell, I'm really old. I'm sorry?
For you, it's Red Skeleton.
Thank you.
Wow, well
God bless.
done.
Good
Very
night.
nice. Exactly. God bless.
Gertrude Heathcliff, the Jew Seagull.
There's on Amazon
And
Prime.
3 people got that.
Amazon Prime has Red Skeleton reruns.
Do they really?
Yeah, for real.
I always heard that he didn't let them rerun his shows because he wanted them to run complete. He didn't want them to edit them. So that's why they never like the Lost Honeymooners or something.
Right. Or yeah, chopped out a half hour.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's crazy.
It is. It's kind of.
Are we rolling?
Chaz, are you good?
Are we
Chaz
good?
is ready.
Okay, cool.
So now we'll pretend I just got.
Here we go. Exactly. Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great time at C2E2. John Siuntres, and I host the Word Balloon podcast, and I was honored when the gentleman asked me to moderate his panel. I've done it before, we're going to have a great time, and we're ready to talk, but I hope you guys have a lot of questions as well. But the man we've all come to see, a man who's outrun The Walking Dead, the original American Horror Story, ladies and gentlemen, the Baron of Berwyn. Rich Coves, a.k.a. Svengoolie, everybody.
I thought I was Baron of Gray Matter. It's an old Stooges joke.
I'm with you. Every time you think you're weak in the nation. Another great
I'm
Stooges
trying to
joke.
think, but nothing happens.
Rich, I gotta ask, start right off the bat, what is the first movie that scared you?
The first movie that scared me, honest to God, was The Wizard of Oz. When I was a kid, when I was very small, everybody in my family was like, oh, we have to watch The Wizard of Oz this year. And it wasn't the flying monkeys. That didn't bother me. It wasn't, the trees throwing the apples. It was that witch. There was something about her voice that just scared me so badly that I'd, stick my head in the couch. It frightened me so badly, and I'd have nightmares about it.
Okay, absolutely. Do you, at that time, were you happy, or entertained by horror, or did it always scare you? When did it become fun and funny for you?
Yeah, it took a while for that. I was really frightened. When I was a small kid, I've told this story before, I was afraid of everything. Balloons popping were terrible, and popping into the microphone. But because I had very sensitive ears, and I could never communicate that to my parents. Because they say, look, it's just a balloon popping. They'd pop it. And because I had such acute hearing, it would almost hurt my ears. And I could never explain that to them. And I was afraid of skeletons. I learned that from TV. For some reason, I thought that when it was dark, there would be skeletons in the room or something, and they would attack me. And I was afraid of the dark, too. So I was a mess as a kid. But it was probably about, junior high level that I really started to get into horror and horror movies. And from then on, I absolutely loved them.
Were you watching the Shock Theater syndication panel, or were you going to movies, or both, to see horror?
I was seeing them mostly on TV at that
Okay.
time. And this was after the package had debuted, because I was, by that time I was, 1968 or so.
Okay.
And there were plenty of things on, especially locally. We had all sorts of movies that ran. And I got to the point where on Sunday nights on our local NBC affiliate, they'd always be running horror movies late at night, and I would actually get up and sneak up while everybody else was asleep and turned on real low, so my parents wouldn't be awakened. And they were running some of the Universal Classic stuff then, and I loved it. That really kind of burned it into my mind.
Now, we've been enjoying you for 40 years, 40 plus years. You were originally the son of Svengoolie, and older viewers might remember that there was an earlier Svengoolie, Jerry G. Bishop, and it was something Yellow Theater. What was it?
Screaming Yellow Theater.
Screaming Yellow Theater.
Titled somewhat against that snack, Screaming Yellow Zonkers, although we don't know what the connection was, quite honestly. And Jerry G. Bishop, who was my mentor, he's the guy that got me into the business. He just happened to be the staff announcer, was on duty on Friday nights when they were running these horror movies. And he was a shtick guy. He did great radio stuff that was so funny. And he started to just play around with the announcements he had to do during the show. And eventually started creating this character and did an accent and everything and requested that people send in material. So I was a fan of his from everything he did, and I started just sending in jokes and things. And he got wind of the fact that I was a Northwestern student, and he said, well, why don't you come in and watch us sometime? And came into the station and, watched him, got to help out, got to do voices and do artwork, and he asked me to write specific things for it, and eventually we kind of became a team. When he went to WMAQ Radio after the original Svengoolie show was canceled, I was with him. I was his producer, and also I was maybe 75% of the celebrities and characters that he talked to.
It was like you imitate back then.
Oh, geez, we'd be driving in, he'd be going through the paper, and it's like, let's see who's in the news. Oh, Dean Martin. You're going to be Dean Martin today. Well, I don't know about that. And I was we created different characters. We had commercials for, there was a place called Plywood, Minnesota, that was sort of like a Home Depot. And we did things where I was the president of it, and his name was John Leffler. And we created a sort of, clueless type guy. And they didn't mind it at all. They loved it. And it was a lot of fun. And so I got to create all these characters and be these different celebrities. And it was a great, learn while you earn type experience.
Now, you guys were doing the kind of sketch comedy on radio and TV that as a little kid, I was hoping the business would still be like that. It kind of disappeared and you were the lone exception doing your show.
Yeah, actually it did.
But before we get to, the original Svengoolie, if people remember, he was kind of like a ghoul hippie. He had white face, long hair, headband and stuff. So how did the look happen? How did you choose this look?
Oh, well, it was, I should explain that Jerry had been canceled and wasn't doing the character. One summer, a friend of his at one of the TV stations asked him, do you want to do Svengoolie just as like a lark during the summer, just as a fill-in type thing? And Jerry said, I don't really want to dress up in this. And he turned to me and said, but you could do it. And I'm like, me? And he's like, yeah, you could be like son of Svengoolie, and you can write and I'll write and produce. And the fact that he had the confidence in me and thought I could pull it off was tremendous. However, we had a lot of false starts at it and it never happened. And finally, when Jerry got a job offer in San Diego and was leaving for there, he asked me, well, what are you going to do? And at the time, everybody I had been working with was moving to the West Coast. I worked with Dick Orkin, who did the Chicken Man cereal and all those great commercials. He had moved out to California. Jerry was moving out there, and I wasn't about to commute. So he said, well, so what are you going to do? And I said, well, maybe I'll try to pitch some local TV station on a show. And he said, I tell you what, if you want to do the Son of Svengoolie thing, you have my blessing. Awesome. And that was it. That was the way Jerry was. He was very generous. He just turned it over to me. He never asked for anything. He totally supported me in it. And when I finally, was making it, he was just very thrilled and very proud of me. And again, never asked for anything. An incredibly generous man.
Well, and again, you incorporated sketches on the show and song parodies, making funny things, but I really love the turn in the last few years, and you'll correct me if it's been longer, where watching the Svengoolie show, we're not only enjoying the fun of these movies, but we're also getting a film history lesson. And honestly, I love that. And I'm an old movie buff, talking about Fuller Brush Man and things. So I learn, and it's always like, oh look, it's Milburn Stone from Mr. Drysdale from the Beverly Hillbillies in this monster movie and stuff. And that's, seriously, I look forward to that, because you give these wonderful character actors their due, and it's like, hey, by the way, here's a minute, and you should really know about this person. That's fantastic.
Well, like you, I was always a fan of all these old movies and TV shows, and there were so many times where I'd see somebody, and it's like, I know this guy, but I don't know where I know him from. So that's why I like to provide that sort of link, so, in case you don't remember, this guy used to be, the wacky next door neighbor on this sitcom or whatever. And it's great. And when we can find stuff about the special effects, I like to throw that in. And the thing that gets me is, a lot of times, we have only a certain amount of time we can fill. Because,
Sure.
the movie's this long, and we have the time, and all the rest of the time is commercials. And I'll go over some of the characters, and I'll get the complaining thing, oh, you did not mention that so-and-so was actually a cowboy in the movie, whatever. And it's like, I'm not giving their whole resume. It's like, I don't have time to go through the fact that he started in the business when he was 3 years old and was the Gerber baby for 2 years before suddenly. So people have to understand, we have limited time, and I can't do it. And I love especially when they determine, you really blew not mentioning. And it's like, yeah, boy, I'm going to hell.
And the celebrity guests that you've had, and I mean, really, through the span of the 40 years, because I remember when John Pertwee, the
Yes.
third Doctor, we have a Dalek in the back, but he was a guest, and that was really cool. To Gilbert Gottfried in the last couple of years.
Sure, yeah. Gilbert Gottfried, my wrestling pals, Mick Foley and CM Punk, who's here, I think, not in this room, but he's at C2E2. And so many people that we've run into along the way who we found out are fans of the show. And it's, that's so flattering to me that, people that I've enjoyed their work are actually liking what I do.
And now you are, I love the fact that, and who was the executive at Weigel? Neil Saban, that revived, because you had a period,
Yeah.
you kind of had a wilderness period where you were still at Fox.
I thought you
But
were
not
going to say it
doing-
was Grizzly Adams.
Exactly, you were living in a cabin as a young man, killing game to eat every day. No, but
And
you,
chickens.
yes, rubber chickens, exactly. And but no, I remember you were a weekend weatherman, and and you weren't doing Svengoolie. And thank God Neil Saban remembered how much fun this show is.
Yeah, it was cool because, quite honestly, Neil, when I was at 32 WFLD, he was at Channel 50 and running there, and one of the guys in charge at WFLD always told me, oh, Neil Saban hates you. And I'm like, okay. And when he was going to start the local channel, The U, some friends of mine, Steve and Johnny, who did overnights at WGN, said, you should really talk to Neil Saban. I said, well, I've been told that he doesn't like me. And Steve said, I don't think that's true. Talk to Neil. And Neil said, no, of course not. We got together, we talked. I was the first hire when he started The U as far as talent. And the whole thing was, he, like us, grew up watching local TV and knew the things that he really liked. And he thought that, there was a chance to bring back the character. And it was at that time that, right before I went on, that Jerry G. Bishop came into town. I was visiting with him, and I said, well, I'm going to be doing this. And I said, I think calling myself Son of Svengoolie might not make sense, because even near the end of my original run, people were like, Son of Svengoolie, well, who's Svengoolie? So I said, I'm thinking of shortening it. And Jerry said the immortal words, you're all grown up now, just be Svengoolie. So again, he was very generous in just letting me take on that name. So it meant a lot to me.
And I remember 5 years ago, I was going to do a video interview with you, and I'm so glad that, certainly as the U evolved and Weigel and creating ETV, and we all know he's a national sensation now. And this is my story, I swear to God. Joel Hodgson from Mystery Science Theater, we're backstage where Rich is doing autographs, and I was about to do a video interview. And he's like, can I talk to him for a second? I'm like, of course. And he's like, I just want to tell you, and this is my memory of it,
Yeah.
I just want to tell you how much we owe you with Mystery Science Theater. And he went even further. He goes, a lot of my stand-up buddies in LA think you're hilarious.
Yes, yeah, which is so flattering. And I've become friends with Trace Beaulieu. I never pronounce it.
Trace Beaulieu.
Beaulieu, yes.
Dr. Forrester from the original
and
MST3K.
Frank Conniff,
Frank
he's
Conniff.
Frank.
Absolutely.
And it's so cool to hear that, and these guys have gone on to such great fame, and it's so cool that, they kind of give me a nod. It's almost overwhelming. And I have to say, you talk about, all the years here, I keep telling people now, yeah, I'm an overnight sensation in 40 years.
But I do know that, again, this national fame, it's been a few years now, and that's fantastic. And also, again, to come from, and we know the 5-channel world and a lowly UHF, and now you're a national name and everything, and that's amazing. And I know, didn't Showtime do the documentary about horror hosts with Dana Gould, and were you featured on that?
I believe so, yeah.
So I know Dana's a fan, and of course...
Dana is a big fan. Dana always says he would like to have my job, so maybe someday.
Dana writes for The Simpsons and a good stand-up, and then...
He's a very funny guy.
Well, and another guy, and unfortunately, he's no longer associated with DC. Everybody know about this?
Yes.
How about that? And seriously, yeah. Isn't that cool? Unbelievable, man. Svengoolie meets the DC universe, and there he is surrounded by the Justice League.
Yeah, how do you figure that? and I've been a comics fan since I was a kid, and of course the first comics that I got were DC Comics. I always loved those heroes, and when Dan DiDio kept saying to me, we should do something, I was like, sure, and he put me in Mad Magazine. They did a real funny satire, and he kept saying, we should do something else. And he came up with this idea of, Sven facing this terrible menace that I had to rely on the Justice League to help me to defeat. And the cool thing was, he laid out the kind of format for it, and I got to plug in some dialogue and a couple things in the plot, and it's like a dream come true for me, and it's so cool. We saw Stephen Amell yesterday, and I showed it to him, and it's like, see, we're in the same book.
Yeah, that's cool. That's excellent, man. No, I was thrilled when that happened, absolutely. Well, I can continue, but I hope people have questions, because I really want to give everyone a chance to ask Rich everything you've always wanted to know. So
everything?
And also, Rich, I'm curious, because again, you've transitioned from the 5-channel world to where we are now. Like, were you ever on Donahue or Oprah or anything crazy? Any of the other locals that were here and kind of making noise?
I was on Oprah's very first show.
Were you really?
Yes, on tape.
Go on.
Because they went around and they were getting local celebrities, which included the Empire Carpet Man. To just, say a few words welcoming her and such. And so I did some shtick, and they inserted in a couple of places in there. And she's never spoken to me, or even acknowledged me. So you get ignored, and you get ignored, and you get ignored.
We have a microphone right there in the middle of the aisle, so if people have questions, please start lining up. And I would love to, know what's on your mind. What's on tonight?
Oh my goodness, tonight is the very frightening Monolith Monsters. Do you know that movie?
I don't know that movie. Tell me.
It's Grant Williams and the beautiful Lola Albright,
right. So
who you might know from Peter Gunn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Grant Williams.
Grant Williams, the incredible shrinking man.
Thank you, yes.
And a meteor kind of hits down. Hi, Quasimodo. And a meteor touches down and shatters into 1,000,000 pieces in the desert, and people start picking them up as souvenirs, but they somehow have the power, first of all, the contact to turn the people to stone, and secondly, they start to grow and become these huge, tall monoliths, which grow, then fall down, and then from the rubble they start growing again. So they're moving forward towards the town where they will destroy all humanity and several buildings. There go the real estate values. But it's very cool. It's very different from a lot of the 50s stuff, because this time it's not, nuclear radiation has caused this. And it's a very cool movie.
I smell Burt I. Gordon involved in this. Is this a Burt I. Gordon movie?
I don't think it is,
All right.
actually.
Well, we had a good line. So
I'm glad you brought up Burt I. Gordon.
Oh man, dude, I'm telling you, I learned it all from you, sir. Absolutely. First question, yes, sir.
Hi, Sven.
Hi.
I want to thank you for 40 years of fun.
Oh, well, thank you.
I also want to thank you for not rerunning the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
Yes, that was one movie that, of all the movies we've shown, I think that one has been universally rejected by almost every viewer.
I did too.
There are things in it I like too, and there's other things where I said they're going, yeah, I can see why people didn't. And of course, Dr. Seuss, who wrote it, disliked it strongly because they tampered with it so much and took out, 6 or 7 other songs that he had written.
Yeah.
So he was not thrilled by that.
But it was so weird, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why I thought it fit. I mean, I know it's not
Sure.
a monster movie, but it is so bizarre, and that's kind of why. And I mean, it's not like psychedelic 60s bizarre, it's just, people in weird costumes running around.
Just weird, yes.
That's cool.
Well, I wanted to ask you, when you do the parody songs,
Yeah.
do you watch the movie once, or you gotta watch it over and over again?
No, basically, when I'm preparing for the show, I screen the movie, and as I'm watching it, I'm writing very copious notes. I'm also deciding where the breaks will come in. If it's a longer movie, even as I'm looking through it there, I'm deciding what I can trim out, and that's an important thing. I remember on one of the local channels here, when they'd run a movie and they had a short period of time, they just cut whole scenes. And it's very, very rare that we do anything like that. We try to literally, it may take a long time, but we trim 10 seconds here or 20 seconds there because we want to maintain the integrity of it. And it's only in extreme cases that we will cut a whole scene. I watch it once usually. And that's it. And from my notes, that's where I pull all the ideas to write the songs. I write the songs that make the whole world sing.
Hi, Sven, longtime fan.
Thanks.
What's probably your favorite giant monster?
My favorite giant monster.
Not a movie, just the monster itself.
The monster itself, I do like Godzilla a great deal, but one that we've never been able to run on our show is Gamma Ray. For some reason, those movies have never been made available to us. I don't know if they're worried about salmonella. We handle turtles that happens, but I'd love to have some of those, but I always enjoyed those a great deal, and the fact that he was friend to all children.
That's true. That's very true. And I guess that is a different company than Toho, because I
Yes.
know they did the recent King of the Monsters Godzilla movie.
Yeah, which has
And
also made it harder for us to get Godzilla movies, because for some reason, right before that latest movie came out, we no longer were able to get those
Wow.
movies. So people ask all the time, are you going to run Godzilla? And I'd love to, but we can't get them right now.
Insane.
Good afternoon, Sven.
Hi,
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I am doing very good.
Oh, good, thank you, and good night.
Number one, I don't think people here really know how generous of a person you are. Because you do a lot of work for different charities and stuff, and you do things.
Absolutely.
I figure, I've been very fortunate, you've got to give back.
Yeah, well, for those that don't know, Sven's also a very good animal lover, so he does help out Lincoln Park Zoo and Brookfield Zoo
Yep.
with charities and raising money. Also, I don't know if you knew it on, what's the cable station that shows all the old movies like TMC?
TCN.
TCN.
Turner Classic Movies, yeah.
They actually mentioned you.
Oh, yeah, I've been told about that. When they were talking about a special sort of, what is it? I don't know.
Friday night or something.
The term for it,
Yeah,
underground?
Mondo, they do their
Yes.
movies and stuff, yeah.
So I didn't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, that's really pretty cool. It's nice to be mentioned there, and it's a shame that my cable company actually took Turner Classic Movies off ours, and they put it with a sports package that you have to pay extra to get. Yeah, and it's like, okay, I really want, amateur left-handed bowling. As well as, I don't know. It's got to be the reason they put it in there is because people like the movies,
Right.
but they don't particularly care to get the sports stuff. So
I'm hoping HBO Max, their streaming service, will include Turner.
Oh, that'd
and I
be
keep
great.
hearing probably.
Oh, okay.
So, because I'm in the same boat, man. No,
Same thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No.
So I'm watching the other Weigel channel, that movies channel.
Movies channel, sure. There's a lot of stuff.
And and honestly, it's great. Like every other month, it's like once again the Dark Corner with Lucille Ball, and it's a great noir movie that she made in the 50s.
Yes,
But
they do. There's one night a week, I think, where they run noir stuff, and I always like seeing that. And look, they're leaving in droves. Well,
Oh well.
sorry that we bored you.
Yeah.
So my question basically is, in the past, you used to do a lot of other skits, we always joked at the zoo about Svenards. Have you ever thought about coming and bringing some of those back? 'Cause I haven't seen the Svenard skits in a long time.
Well, there's a reason for that. That was based on the guy that was in all their commercials, who would always do the big teeth clench. And he hasn't been in their commercials for years, probably because of the fact that he's dead.
Probably.
But we hit certain things. I know you've probably seen when we did the My Pillow parody, and I was the Die Pillow guy. And the Boa Brace. And yeah, we still will be doing stuff like that, definitely. When something strikes me and it's identifiable enough to people all over, there's certain people that I wonder if they're just local commercials, and since we're on nationally, I can't just do them now. But when it's something national and we hit on it, we'll let them have it.
Are you going to be a cowboy telling us about your catheters and beside your bag? Sorry, I hope everybody had breakfast in this building.
I think so. No. I want to be the guy who what is that one thing? Meeting people is my life. I don't remember what that's even for now, but it's annoying.
All right, here's a freebie. Instead of a walk-in tub, a walk-in coffin.
I think we've got a joke about that
All right,
coming
good.
up.
And, all right, sorry.
And horror of Dracula, watch for that.
So real fast, before we get to the next question, how often do you refresh bits for, you run Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein or Ghost of Mr. Chicken? How often do you refresh bits?
It depends what's in it.
Okay.
Some stuff, it's like if you rerun a Seinfeld and it all works, they're not exactly shooting new little scenes to go in it. If the show holds up, a lot of times when we do appearance stuff, like visiting here, we put those in the show. We try to phase in something new. And we will change out certain things. Sometimes we have to because a person has gotten into legal trouble or has passed on, it would be in bad taste to do the joke.
Sure.
But yeah, and it depends on how much production time we have too. Because a lot of stuff goes on at our company. We've got, 3 or 4 networks coming out of the place. And there isn't always enough production time. But we do what we can. We try to keep everything fresh. There's always at least one new segment in everything, and that's the mail segment.
Oh, cool. That's excellent.
Sven, John, good to see you. Hey, congratulations on a great career, 40 years.
Thank you.
Awesome. And with, you've got the MeTV, the nationally syndicated thing, but then you also still have the local, I think, 11:30s on Saturday morning.
It's moved earlier for the next few weeks due to high school sports.
Okay. Has there been any thought at all, like even locally, of bringing back Stoogapalooza?
Well, they're running now 2 hours of the Three Stooges right before our show.
Okay.
But the way things are going now, I certainly don't have time to do it. But I think they want to just get as many of the shorts in as possible, and I'm for one very happy to see it. And I know there are a few people who are like, Wonder Woman's gone. And I love Wonder Woman too, but, well, let's not talk about that. The fact that, one smart thing that they always do at MeTV is, you want to rest some shows for a while so that the ratings will not go down.
Sure.
I mean, the ratings were fine on Wonder Woman, but we've gone through the cycle of episodes several times, and they thought, well, let's just rest it for a little while so that when it comes back, it'll be a little more fresh for people.
Right.
Buck Rogers looks like it's back in HD or something like that. I've watched on good TVs, and I'm like, wow, it never looked this,
Yeah, we
clean.
try to get as many of the newer versions of the stuff as we can, especially with some of the movies that we run.
Sure.
A lot of them have been, redigitized and cleaned up, and, especially some of the Universal stuff looks so good. It's nice to have it. A lot of times people ask, why don't you show some of the old public domain stuff? And the reason is we've shown it before, but the prints just aren't good enough for digital TV, and my bosses really want the movies to look as good as possible.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, you know him.
I do 2 shits.
Oh.
That's his nickname. It's good man.
So that was a good lead-in, because I was also going to say I was a big fan and follower of Stoogapalooza. So just a quick question then. Do you have favorite Stooges shorts?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I do. I like the one where they're Icemen.
Classic.
Yeah. And I like Goof on the Roof, where Shemp has to put the antenna up on the roof, and they're helping out their pal who just got married, and they're installing his TV. I'm a big fan of Shemp. Some people don't care for him, but I always thought he was tremendous. And you could always tell when he'd start ad-libbing and going just completely off script, and the stuff is so off the wall, but it's great. I always love that.
Oh, and I see that's gonna make me shoehorn in, and we've talked about it on my podcast before. Give like a minute about fake Shemp.
Fake Shemp,
You guys
yes.
know about fake Shemp?
You're aware
For
of
the,
that?
for the other half of the room, tell people about fake Shemp.
The Raimi brothers, in their movies with Bruce Campbell, often will have somebody as a stand-in, and he's labeled as a fake Shemp. The reason for this is, in the last few Shemp episodes, Shemp had passed away. I used to do a bit that was, kind of bad taste, called The Death of Shemp. Because in reality, he was, should I do this?
That's all right. Tragedy plus time is coming.
They were going to boxing matches,
Yeah.
and Shemp had, I believe, a heart attack and died.
That's right, yeah.
So, let's imagine it went like this. Hey, fellas, I don't feel so good. Shut up, you want to ruin our night at the fights? I mean it, fellas. I'm not feeling so good. Quiet down. And then he would die. Hey, I think something's wrong with Shemp. Shut up. Yeah, that was great. But anyway, so Shemp passed away. It's a stupid bit.
I like that.
Shemp passed away, and this was during the time, wartime and such, when they were recycling a lot of the shorts anyway. They do maybe a new beginning, new ending. And these people were offended by my Shemp, they're leaving. They would,
For the memory of Shemp.
hey, those people don't feel so good. There was, they wanted to reduce it, so they used, a lot of times, one of the side actors, Joe Palma, and they'd shoot him from behind as Shemp. And there were times when they'd dub in Shemp lines, and there were other times when they had him doing the eep beep, and it was terrible. They didn't sound horrible. But there were like 4 shorts, I believe, with that, where there was a fake Shemp. And that was right before they brought in Joe Besser. Whenever I did Stooge-a-Palooza, and we'd run
Joe's.
one show called, appropriately, Oh No, It's Joe. I would get emails, just, they were so angry. And there was one guy who would send an entire page that just repeated over and over again, no Joe, no Joe, no Joe, no Joe, no Joe.
Like Nicholson in The Shining. That's
And even last week, I guess they ran a couple of Joes in the program, and I was on the air with Nick DiGilio on WGN. And he said, "Why were they running that Joe Besser?" And the thing is, we pay for all 160 of them, and you try to use all of them.
Sure. Jeez, man. You can look on YouTube for fake Shemp, and you'll see those
Yes.
scenes, and they're so glaringly obvious. So it's funny.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome, man.
Hey, Rick. I have been around, I've been a Chicago girl all my life, and I just remember all the kinds of trials and travails that you went through with, like, Channel 32 before it became Fox and all that. And I'm glad you're still with us, because you are a Chicago institution. Please.
Or actually, people say I should be an institution.
But my question is that, you've said before on the show that sometimes you cannot get the rights for certain movies, etc. What are those movies that you would like to see, that you just would kill for the rights that you haven't been able to show?
One movie that we've been trying to get and have not so far, and I really want to run it, is Fiend Without a Face.
Oh, yeah.
You guys know that, right? With the invisible menace that turns out to be brains with long spinal columns that inch along like caterpillars.
Yeah, it's like
And when they shoot them, they sound like a whoopee cushion that's spouting raspberry jam or something. That's the one, white whale that we keep searching for. And my bosses are looking for it, so I'm hoping that we'll get it someday.
Hi, Sven.
Hello.
You're well known and loved as Svengoolie, but I first got to know you as Rich Coes, the host of the Coe Zone.
Right.
The afternoon.
The TV, man.
My question is, how did that gig come about?
Actually, that came about when it would have been 10 years, it would have been my 10-year anniversary, I believe. And Rob Feeder, who was the Sun-Times TV columnist at the time, wrote a column saying, it's a shame that he's not on the air doing this. And the people who were at 32 at the time, and it was Fox by then, were taken aback. They were worried that, oh my gosh, this is gonna reflect badly on us. So they came up with a great idea, and they called me and said, here's what we want you to do. We want to do a movie show, and you'll be the Fox Phantom who lives in the basement and shows these movies. And I said, that's great, except one of the country music channels is doing the exact thing and calling it the Phantom of the Opry. I said, here's what I want to do. Recently, for real, there was a guy that broke into the signal of Channel 9 and Channel 11 with a Max Headroom mask. I said, what I'll do is, how about if I play a disgruntled former employee who breaks into the signal every week and runs a couple movies? And I'm like, well, okay. And I did it as myself, and we did promos that at the time they were running like Phil Donahue and the Cosby Show. And the promo would start as one of those, and there'd be static, and it would show me messing with some bit of weird equipment. There was a sign that said, 10:30 Friday. And then it would fade out again and be the end of that promo. And you're like, what's going on? What is this? And somebody from the FCC actually contacted our chief engineer and said, yeah, do you want us to send out a truck and find out who's doing that? And the chief engineer had to tell him it was just like a promotional thing, and they were not too pleased about that. But I did that, and while I was doing that, we got the rights to the Three Stooges, so I did those. First I was doing movies, then that. And then the Fox network decided they were going to do their block of kids shows. And they wanted local hosts in every city. So my bosses called me and they said, we want you to host this stuff. I said, well, I'd rather just keep doing the Stooges. They said, well, that show may not be around anymore. So I was like, good, I'll do it. And, they said, well, it should be somewhat educational. So basically what I did was, and then the thing that I guess people liked was I didn't talk down to kids, and we did shtick stuff, but we added in some stuff that was kind of educational. And again, I got to play a lot of different characters, and it was a big success. And I remember them looking at the ratings, and they were like very confused. It's like, I don't understand this. We have all these adults tuning in now to the kids show. They didn't have a clue. So, but yeah, I hear more and more about the Co-Zone these days, and I'm glad that so many people liked it.
How about Sunday Night Black and White? I like that too.
Yes, Sunday
was
Night
awesome.
Black and White.
And they put you in, they would make you in black and white. Yeah.
Yes.
You had a little great looking 1950s kind of curtain behind you, and
Yes, that was it. We had one character who was like the old 50s announcer, Hugh H. Chef. Really used for some of that stuff. And then for a while they ran mystery stuff, and I was the voice of that character, a trench-coated guy with a hat, Mr. E, who would do little announcements in between everything. And it was a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed doing that. It varies it up. I get to do other characters, and it's fun stuff, and I think people enjoy it.
that's the beauty of local television, man. And it truly, like the lady said earlier, Bozo's gone, Ray Rayner's gone, all these things that we grew up with. And really, man, thank God he's still here, and that the bosses understand like the appeal of this.
Bill Jackson, the great Bill Jackson,
Yes,
who did
BJ.
and
Yes,
Dirty
Dirty
Dragon
Dragon,
and
yeah.
Yellowstone Hotel.
Yes.
Whenever I talk to him, he always says, you're the last man standing.
It's true, man.
And it's nice because he enjoys what I do, and that's a big compliment to me.
Understood.
So been a fan for years. Started when a little kid. Your movies scared the hell out of me because I had no idea what was going on. I didn't catch all the humor. As a teenager, got into the Co-Zone, won me over. I really had I'm like, oh, I just have a makeup on. What's going on? And you definitely won me over. Became a fan. Then I got into my professional life. Started working at the high school in Berwyn. And
Where was that?
And I just happened to meet some people who knew you.
Mm-hmm.
So, since I am still in the area working there, can you just kind of just tell me about how you received when if you go back to Berlin, or
Did I come in with rocks?
Yeah, the scenes in the Frankenstein movies where they torture kids? No, we just did an appearance there at the Pet Supplies Plus at Harlem and Cermak. And there was a line going out the door and all the way down the block of stores there. Very honestly, anytime I've been there, the people in Berwyn have been so kind, and they love the fact that, one lady came up to me and said, you put us on the map. And the only person who ever complained was a short-lived mayor there, who was from the Independent Party, who started a whole thing of, we're not this suburb that Svengoolie's making these bad jokes about. And, and he was deposed shortly after.
And you told me there are more than just Berwyn, Illinois, that nationally there are several. Berwyn.
Yeah, there's at least 5 or 6 other towns
Isn't
in
that crazy?
Berwyn all over the country. I think there's one in Pennsylvania. And I've gotten pictures from people in various parts of the country of streets named Berwyn as well. So it's not just limited here. And I guess there's a place, it's either in Wales or something like that, and I think they pronounce it Berwyn.
Sure.
So it has quite a history all around the world.
That's it's classier for the country club.
Definitely.
There we go. Next person.
What's your favorite comic book character?
Who?
My favorite comic book character, I'm a big fan of Batman. I'm a big Batman fan, and I like the Flash too.
Sure.
And I also like the Hulk, who, is in the building here. We passed by him, Mark Ruffalo.
That's right.
Those are, I think, my top favorites, really. There's a lot of the Marvel characters I really like, and of course love the movies too. So, but yeah, I think my big favorites would be Batman and Superman and the Hulk. So don't make me angry.
And I know a celebrity hero that's a big fan of yours, and from the Star Wars universe.
Oh, yes, Mark Hamill.
Tell a story about how you
Okay,
connected.
I tell this story all the
But
time.
everybody
I
loves
hope
it.
you're not bored. One day I get an email and it says, I've been watching you now on MeTV. I just am thrilled. I love the stuff that you do, et cetera, et cetera. Signed Mark Hamill. And I'm like, okay. Me, I could be considered a bottom feeder celebrity, and there are people who go around pretending to be me. By the way, if you see somebody dressed as me here and they pretend
Raise
to
your
be-
hand. Thank you. Right over there.
Yes, but you're not pretending.
He's not
to be.
pretending, but-
Yes, and I appreciate that. But I've heard from people who've gone to other conventions and said, "Oh, this guy said he was really you." And I'm like, "No, I was never there."
Wow.
But I emailed him back saying, "I'm flattered, but I just don't know for sure that you're who you say you are." And he said, "Okay, well, send me your phone number and I'll call you." And I was thinking, okay, if it's not him, that would be the smartest move. Here's my phone number. Here, let me give you my credit card number. And I said, well, no. And then I thought, okay, I've seen you have a Twitter that's verified. Why don't you just post something on there, and then then we'll advance. He's like, great idea. So I'm waiting 1 hour, nothing. 2 hours, nothing. 3 hours, nothing. I'm like, yeah, Mark Hamill, okay. And I'm Frazier, how are you? All of a sudden, up pops, most fun thing that I discovered this summer, Svengoolie on MeTV, under Mark Hamill's Twitter name. And so sent him the phone number, he called me, we talked first time for about 45, 50 minutes. We've been friends who have never met in person yet. He keeps saying, we will meet, it is our destiny. He has a whole collection of Sven stuff, and he records the show every week, and I get comments from him now and then, so I'm very, very flattered by that.
Pretty cool.
I wanted to piggyback off my little sister's question. You said you liked superhero movies. I was wondering if you could have all the rights to all of those, what would be something that you would like to do?
I would really like to have Captain America Civil War.
Cool.
I really like that movie. I like all the Captain America movies. He's also one of my favorites too. I'd love to have that. Maybe some of the Batman movies. Some are kind of dark, and I don't know that we're supposed to be family friendly, so I don't know if we'd be able to run some of them. But these are characters that I love, and any of them I could get, I'd be happy. Except maybe no, I'm not gonna say that. Thank you.
Would they ever? I remember they cut down a Spy Smasher cliffhanger serial into a more workable thing. And would it do any of those things? Do they ever, or even have you ever run any of the Flash Gordon movies or Buck Rogers?
What we've done with Flash Gordon, And Buck Rogers is, you're familiar with Spencerround? It's where we'll add sound effects and maybe redub lines. We did a huge thing, several parts of Flash Gordon that were completely redubbed, that I always love to show, and people seem to enjoy those. And again, the problem is, again,
Right.
as far as being mastered and looking good for digital TV.
Sure.
And I think, this is sad to say, but there's a limited audience for that. That's just like when people ask, are you going to show silent horror movies? And it's like, I have an interest in them, but it's kind of been through research proven that you lose a lot of the audience with those, unfortunately. So there's a lot of different considerations on what we can and can't run.
Did Buster Crabbe ever make it to your show?
No, he was a lot older when
Yeah.
I first started, and I think he was doing the TV commercials where there was a T-shirt that had like an elastic thing in the front, and he said, you know, if you were a man with a big corporation up front, you needed this shirt to help you look slim and trim.
It's like a girdle T-shirt combination.
Yeah,
It's
it was
ridiculous.
very funny.
Go on, buy a dozen of them.
And that was, yeah, so we really didn't get the chance to have him on. I would have loved it though. I was a big fan of his.
Yeah, man. No, he's amazing. Sir.
Yes.
I've been a fan for most of my life.
Nice.
And I would like to mention that possibly for a joke commercial.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of Trumpy Bear?
No, I'm afraid I have not.
Well, you should look it up. It is real and it is kind of really hilarious.
I am interested in seeing that. I have to say that we've kind of been warned to kind of stay away from political stuff on this show. Because I think as Johnny Carson said, why do you want to alienate half your audience?
Sure.
And but yes, I would like that. And we once did a bit where we had Donald Trump as the hand. It was during the days of The Apprentice. And I was always thinking that, you know, we wouldn't be able to run that today. I remember one of the jokes in it was, you know, he was talking about his daughter, and he said, you know, my daughter, the trumpet. And I said, well, every time I see her, I always think of sax. One of the many lines that would no longer run on the program.
All right, somebody find Rich Coase and take care of him, please.
That was really good.
See, like I said, man, dude, I followed your path in broadcasting, and seriously, when I was in high school, I went, this is gonna be great, sketch radio, comedy, everything's great, and it went away.
Yeah, I loved it. When I was doing mornings at WCKG, that was about, what, 1981?
Sure.
Something like that? Sure, why not? 1980, 1981, you know, I was still doing that kind of stuff in between the classic rock, where their line was always, you know, doesn't have to be old to be a classic, and our joke was, doesn't have to be good to be a classic. But we were doing that, and I was doing different characters, and radio kind of got away from that more to the, let's embarrass our coworkers, and let's just, you know, put people on, and, you know,
How about a naked on up State Street?
make them look great, yeah, you know.
Yeah, great,
so
thanks a lot. That's
got away from that, and I'd love to do more radio. I love doing radio, and right now I certainly don't have the time. But it'd be nice if someday I could do it, but again, I'd like to do it the way that I enjoy doing it, which is, you know, doing the shtick stuff.
Podcast. But you don't have time, I understand.
I don't know.
And you got a video platform, it's all good.
Well, you know, I stand on my video platform.
First, I want to say thank you for everything you've done for us
No, thanks.
throughout the years. You were talking about Shem, and I had to come up and talk about this. My favorite character, my brother's favorite character, all of our friends' favorite character. We actually had let's call it an honor of being called Shem Puba when you would slip and fall. So walking on the ice, walking through the house in your socks, when you slip and fall, you were Shem Puba. And my brother's name on my phone is Shem. With a picture of Shem with the arrow through the head.
Very nice.
The question I had for you was, will you be here next year? Because I have a photo of myself dressed as you. I was about 12 years old from Halloween. And I can't find it. I've been digging for it. I got a Polaroid of it. I want to bring it next year so I can have you sign it.
There's no way of knowing. I mean, I've been here every year for
Right.
the past few years, and I'm hoping that I will be here next year.
Very fast.
Yeah, and if not, if you find it earlier and you come to one of my other appearances, I'd be more than happy. But yeah, I'll cross my fingers and say, yes, I will be here next year.
Yeah.
Sure.
And honestly, I'm really making as many public appearances as you do, and that you are still, in, like you said, at the pet place and everything. They're out the door waiting for you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And we recently did, because of the comic book, the New York Comic Con.
Yes.
And I was a little worried when we went out there. I was kind of like, okay, you people know me here, and I wonder if there'll be anybody who knows me. And I was pleasantly surprised because there's people walking around wearing my shirts.
That's awesome.
We did a panel there, and they said, yeah, the room holds 400 people. And I was like, oh, there's going to be tumbleweeds going on. And the place was packed. And we did a signing with Christopher Jones, who did the artwork in the comic book, and full line of people coming through. So it was very pleasant, and I was pleasantly surprised. And I keep hearing this from people in other cities, that they go to conventions and there's people dressed as me and wearing the shirts. So it's cool. And I get people kind of sounding me out on this. And the thing is, with our taping schedule and all the work that I have to do, it's kind of hard for me to always travel out of town to do these conventions. I'd love to do them, and we will eventually, I think, do more of those, but it's just a matter, and I'd like to see my family once in a while, I don't know.
How are we doing for time? I'm just curious. I don't know where the person is for
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
10 minutes, okay.
Okay, cool.
Hey,
Thank
let's
you.
ask you a question real fast.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Okay,
I wanna get it right.
yes, let's see, Rick.
Sven, I've been a fan since I caught The Raven when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was hooked on these flicks ever since. I've been trying to get a lot of my friends into them, but I never know where to start and what to do, because there's so many of these movies I love and think that are the perfect movie to show them. And I'm just curious, how do you go about choosing which movies you show, how you show them, what's the order, etc.?
Well, what we do is we get movies offered to us from distributors. It's much harder than it used to be. There used to be tons of distributors who would be, knocking on your door and ready to, look, do you want to take this? Do you want to take this? There are far fewer of those distributors now, and a lot of the movies have ended up not even being offered anymore. Plus, there are limited movies available because of the competition, of all the online competition and some of the other networks out there. So it's tough, and what we do is like with Universal, we have a list of the Universal movies. We'll send them a list of what we'd like to have for a certain year, and they will let us know if we can get them or not. We can ask for anything, but that doesn't mean we're going to get them. We try to get as many of the originals as we can, quite honestly, because people really want to see those originals. And one movie that people love, and there are people who complain because they don't feel it's horror, is The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. And recently, we ran it for maybe the 5th time, and it had more viewers than it had ever had before. We had a record number of viewers for the show, thanks to The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. And we try to schedule, the ones that are real favorites and people ask for the most, at least once a year if we can. And again, there might be a year where we rest it, similar to what I was saying about some of the shows. But yeah, we try to get the stuff, and sometimes we want to run stuff that hasn't run in a long time. And a lot of times the ratings will spike when we do that, because it's something that's totally different for people. I don't know which ones to suggest to you, because not knowing what your friends would like, you can just tell them to tune in every week and watch and see which ones they like, and the ones that they don't, keep it to themselves.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi Sven, thanks for everything.
Sure.
Keeping the show rated PG is why my folks let me rot my brain every Saturday afternoon. But I do wonder, do you ever self-censor? Do you ever start to think down the road of R-rated material and that you know will never make it on the air?
Yes, occasionally I do, sure. And there's stuff, I don't work blue, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, there are certain jokes that I'll write and then I think, well, that may be a little bit over the line, but we'll try to face it. I mean, I don't mind doing some double entendres, and we do throw those in now and then, but the whole thing is, it's stuff that a lot of times will go over a kid's head, or one of the more sensitive viewers will probably not, complain about it. It's very important to our station because, MeTV is memorable entertainment and it's also supposed to be family entertainment. I got a very angry email from a guy who's saying, oh, your show has no bite. You need to be showing more of the R-rated type stuff from the 70s and 80s. And I said, well, no, not really. I said, we're supposed to be family oriented. And he said, well, people are just going to consider you like, the equivalent of Pee-wee's Playhouse instead of like Elvira. And I said, well, so be it.
Yeah, that's good.
I know you are, but what am I?
Great Sergeant Rockshire. That's cool.
We got 5 minutes, like you told me.
Thank you.
You referenced one, that people are considering you the last man standing, and then two, you started out as someone else's apprentice. Who's your apprentice? How are you making sure that the future of this goes on?
The legacy of Svengoolie.
Actually, I do not have an apprentice. The reason that actually from Jerry G. Bishop was, he said, I was doing that show and I had pretty much done everything I know, and suddenly you turned up with stuff that I could use. So you helped me out and you helped make it go on. He was very grateful for that. Right now, I have no trouble coming up with new stuff. And, we're going to continue. I have the feeling that when I decide to retire, chances are our channel might decide to have somebody else do it. I don't think they'd be a Svengoolie per se, like, grandson or first cousin on the left. But chances are they will want me to maybe help whoever this is get into it. But, during the time that I'm doing this and not thinking of retiring, it's me. That I'll just keep going. I always have to qualify that, people hear that I do that and thought, oh, I'm gonna start sending you material. And I say, no, thank you.
Hi, I'm a graduate student studying the history of Chicago TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested in, so you talk about Jerry G. Bishop as, what's the opposite of an apprentice? The master.
The mentor.
The mentor, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also wondering if you look back at things like Terry Bennett's Shock Theater show, or even Bert Tillstrom's Kukla, Fran and Ollie, and programs like that were centered in Chicago that may have influenced you.
Sure, definitely so. There's a lot of things. I didn't get to see too much of Terry Bennett because I was very young at the time, and the only time I got to see it was when we were at a relative's house where we were allowed to stay up later. But yeah, Kukla, Fran and Ollie, the Channel 9 people like Ray Rayner and Fraser Thomas and the Bozo Show, and people who were doing shtick, and the same thing on radio. People who were doing shtick stuff on the radio were also, influences on me. But yeah, I was watching a lot of that early TV stuff and the local TV stuff especially, and certainly it had an influence on me.
Thank you.
Did you see Lee Phillips just passed away this week?
Yes, and the funny thing is when she was inducted into the Silver Circle,
Yes.
I was the host that year.
Wow.
I remember meeting her, and I had never met her before.
Wow.
And she was just charming, a wonderful lady. She seemed a little lost, and I tried to make sure I stayed around her and kind of, kept her amused. And I remember they haven't mentioned she did a kids show called The Friendship Show that I remember real well.
Cool.
And nobody's mentioned that in any of the articles, but she was, again, what I should call original, one of the most important women in local TV programming, and a very nice person as well. Yeah,
Because she created Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful. But yes, she used to do the Lee Phillips show, and I remember that as a little kid.
Definitely.
Afternoon talk show and everything.
She was a very talented woman, very nice. One last question,
Yes,
because we're running out of time.
Absolutely.
I'm glad I'm the last person, and I'm sorry, it's really not a question.
Okay.
But I just wanted to thank you because your show, my fiance and I are in a long distance relationship, and we work full time during the week. So we always set time Saturdays to watch our show together.
That's
and
adorable.
everything. So I just want to thank you for closing the distance for us.
That's so sweet. I've said this before. People always ask, why are you still doing this? And I think one of the reasons is because of hearing stuff like that. And when I'm doing these appearances, people come up and thank me for what I'm doing. The fact that what I do actually means something to people. That means a lot to me. And I'm very flattered and honored that that's happened. And I have to thank everybody here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for watching. Without you guys, I'd probably be doing weather. No, I wouldn't do weather because I never liked doing me into that because I just happened to be there. And I said, you know, I don't know anything. I don't have the credibility. And they said, oh, you're a weatherman. You don't need credibility.
Rich does everybody, Svengoolie. I have the audio and my buddy's shooting video right there. Oh, that's awesome. 100%, man. No. I'll send you an MP3.
Bye, John.
Oh, Rich is awesome, buddy. Bye, Jim. See you later. Hey, can you take a real fast? Absolutely. Yeah, Jeff, can we take a picture of this thing? Absolutely. You want me to do it? I'll set it up real fast.
Turn it back it up. Great job, Rich.
Thank you.
Love it.
It's
My buddy
always a lot of
Jeff.
fun. Nice to see you.
Jeff's another radio vet
I've been
that.
following you for years. I used to